Hi there again, Marvin Kilborn here, retired public school teacher. My last video was about my one-year experience with ARP High School in ARP, Texas from 2014 to 2015. This next video is going to be one of possibly two, maybe three videos about the last district I worked for, and that would be Tatum High School in Tatum ISD in a small little rural community of Tatum, Texas, about an hour east of Tyler, little south of a place called Longview, Texas, if you're familiar with Texas at all. After all my experiences, and if you've watched my videos, you're probably thinking, my God, man, how long are you willing to try to stick with this effed up profession? But I was kind of committed to it. At this stage of my life, I wasn't planning to, again, I'm in my late 50s by now, when I went to work in Tatum. Not looking to start over, go train for some other kind of job. I'm actually looking retirement in the face in just a few short years. So I was bound and determined to make this education thing, this teaching thing work. And of course, after my experiences in Louisiana, Dallas, Lake Worth, Henderson, ARP, Brownsboro, I'm like, there has got to be at least one good school out there where I will enjoy working, I'll be accepted, not treated like crap, or not cheated out of my job just because of some BS. Somebody doesn't like me, or a new AD comes in and decides to disrupt the apple cart. So I leave ARP. They had put me on administrative leave with pay to finish out the school year. Certainly gave me plenty of time to start applying and going on interviews. Well, one of the schools I interviewed with was Tatum High School in Tatum, Texas. Didn't know a heck of a lot about Tatum. I had interviewed with Tatum about 5, 6, 7 years earlier. They actually offered me the job too, but it was essentially a substitute type position. They were only going to pay me sub pay, so I didn't take that and ended up accepting the job in Lake Worth, Texas, which was also turned out to be a mistake. So anyway, Tatum calls me, a man named Drennan Fight, assistant superintendent of Tatum, called me early in the summer of 2015, said, "Hey, Mr. Kilborn, are you still available? We have an Algebra 1 position open." I said, perfect, right up my alley. I'm an Algebra 1 teaching expert. So sure, I'm still available. And this was a Friday, and typically during the summer, administrators, the administration, the school administration building, principals, superintendents, all those people are usually off every Friday. But this was Friday morning, and Mr. Fight called me, asked me if I was still available. He explained that they had hired some lady who I guess had decided to get married, or something, but whatever reason, she decided not to take the job after all, so he's trying to fill the position. So he asked me if I'm still available. I said, yes, sir, I am. He goes, well, would it be possible for you to come out this morning or sometime today and go ahead and sign this contract? Looking back, that should have been a red flag, should have been a warning to me. Wow, why are you in such a hurry? We have the whole summer. But anyway, my wife and I had been planning to go to Austin that weekend, and we were just getting ready. We were, getting cleaned up, packing, and getting ready to head off to Austin. And I told my wife, hey, they'd like me to come out and sign the contract, but I told them I'd come in next week. And my wife said, no, honey, let's go ahead and go sign your contract, and then we can go to Austin, which was interesting because Tatum's about an hour east of Tyler, but then Austin is 2.5, 3 hours basically southwest of Tyler. So we head east to sign my contract, and then double back and went to Austin. We get our hotel room in Austin. We're out shopping and doing things wives like to do. So that's how it is, guys. So anyway, we're in the hotel, and I decide, you know what? I didn't really check out Tatum at all. I just started applying at schools. I need a new job. So let me Google Tatum High School and Tatum ISD, and I'll just say what I found wasn't promising. First couple hits I got were from local newspapers that had done stories about Tatum. Was shocking to me, the stuff that I was reading. I mean, apparently one day there was like 11 fights in the school. Boys and girls were doing inappropriate things in the bathrooms. They had a picture of the school security officer, essentially the school police officer, had a picture of him sleeping in his truck, somewhere near the building, the high school or middle school, wherever it was. Somebody had caught him asleep and took a picture, and they put that in the local paper, or the Longview Times, whatever that's called, Longview paper. So yeah, I'm reading stuff and thinking, oh my God, I've made another mistake, because the way I'm reading about Tatum, which is just a tiny little rural community out there in East Texas, I mean, what I'm reading is reminding me of what inner city ghetto schools act like. I mean, it just shouldn't be, Tatum, Texas. So anyway, too late. I've signed my contract. It's at least a job. So, and I always go in thinking the best. I'm going to make the best of the situation, whatever it is. And I'm like, well, maybe it won't be that bad. It's going to be a new school year and all that. So anyway, I had to, a couple weeks after I signed my contract, I had to go in for a couple days of training, basically just get acclimated to certain programs that Tatum ISD uses that maybe a lot of districts don't use. So I'm in the library, and the librarian is training us new teachers, and she said, oh, you're the new Algebra 1 teacher. I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, well, I hope they don't run you off. I'm like, you know what? Last time I heard that was in Lucille Collins Middle School, but that was well into the school year after they'd already got, lost 3 other math teachers. This school year hasn't even started. And got to be honest, as a brand new employee, not really the kind of stuff that they should be saying to new employees. I hope they don't run you off. And she wouldn't elaborate. She wouldn't explain why. I asked her why. Why do you say that? She goes, I better keep my mouth shut. Well, you should have thought about that before you said, I hope they don't run you off. Why don't you just keep your mouth shut and do your damn job? So anyway, a couple weeks later, a week later, whatever it was, I wanted to go in and start setting up my room. Of course, as usual, the room's a mess, as just seems to be the way they treat teachers. Here's your garbage room. First thing you're going to have to do is clean it all out, get rid of all the crap and garbage that's probably been accumulating for years before you can even begin to start setting it up for yourself. Just a crappy profession. Anybody out there watching my videos thinking about becoming a teacher, just let me come and just slap you. Don't do it. Don't make the same mistake I did. Or if you do, I hope you have a whole lot better experience than I did. So anyway, I'm cleaning out my room and went into the office looking for something, and a man came out, big guy, Alan Cook was his name. He was actually the principal. Now, they had fired the previous principal, so already I'm thinking, okay, all right, all the stuff I read about in the newspaper and online, that was under the old principal that basically got fired. And what was weird with Tatum, they didn't fire the guy, although they probably should have, since he had lost control of the school. They just relieved him of his principal positions, and they created another administrative position for him to sit in for the next couple of years until he retired. Kind of a golden parachute type of situation. So Alan Cook comes out and he goes, hey, Mr. Kilborn, nice to see you again. And I'm kind of laughing. I didn't know him. He goes, you probably don't remember me. I said, but I met you 5-6 years ago when you came in to interview for a job. So I said, well, where you been? He said he had stayed in Tatum, and then he left to go down to Houston, and he was serving as a teacher / assistant principal or something in the Houston area. So when they were looking for somebody to come in and straighten up Tatum High School, they called Alan Cook to come in. And thank God they did. This man was a godsend, not only to the school, but also he was a godsend to my career, which I'll get into a little bit later. So later on, I've got my room all set up. And then, of course, that week before school starts, we have that week worth of training that all teachers have to go through, just meetings. You have a lot of time to set up your room and start preparing to meet the kids. But then there's all this mandatory training and mandatory meetings that teachers have to go through every single year. And it's truly, truly boring, but you have to do it. Well, the guy that was in charge of this was an idiot named John Wink. Now, John Wink was an assistant superintendent over curriculum, instruction, and assessment. His only teaching background, he wasn't a teacher. He'd been in education for a number of years, but all he was a damn choir director. Nothing against choir directors, but John Wink was just yet another example of why making it so easy to become school administrators is a mistake. The man knew nothing about teaching, knew nothing about being a teacher. He was a school choir director. And if I remember correctly, he was a middle school choir director. So apparently he wasn't even good enough to be a high school choir director. But whatever. He's now assistant superintendent, one of the assistant superintendents of Tatum ISD. And every day he was real dependent on technology. He'd have this training set up. And for whatever reason, every day we're in the cafeteria, the school cafeteria, and every day this technology would break down. The internet would fail or something. Well, this guy didn't even know enough about teaching to know you always have a backup plan. You know, if you decide you're going to teach a lesson using an overhead projector and then the light bulb or the bulb in the overhead projector burns out, you better have another way to present your material. Well, this guy wasn't even smart enough to do that. He said, all right, y'all just go back to your rooms or whatever until we get this all figured out. We'll try this again later. And that's how it went the whole week. The very first day, kind of getting ahead of myself, very first day we had what they call a convocation. The very first day, all the teachers in the entire district all go to the auditorium or the cafeteria or somewhere, and the superintendent comes to talk. Some of the school board members, maybe the school board president will talk, and a lot of times they'll have a guest speaker. And unfortunately, a lot of these districts will hire what they call a motivational speaker, which is a total waste of time. But a convocation. And one of the things they do there is they introduce or have all the brand new teachers stand up. I was shocked that first year. I was shocked at how many brand new teachers were just starting at Tatum. I mean, a ton of teachers had either been let go or had gotten fed up with the nonsense going on at the high school and just left. But I was one of 20, 30, I don't know, it was a lot of us. And the superintendent's going on about what a great district it is, and he was asking other teachers to stand up and just briefly explain why Tatum is such a great district to work in. And most of them just got up and said, family. It's like a family here. Oh, goddamn. Here we go again. I heard that family crap when I was in Brownsboro, Chandler Intermediate School, talking about welcome to the Chandler Intermediate School family, Mr. Kilburn. And then they proceeded to treat me like crap the whole time. So, yeah. So I'm like, already getting some bad vibes here. So anyway, later on, at points during the week, especially since Mr. Wink's technology kept failing and we'd keep going back to our rooms, and which most teachers like. We'd rather be in our classrooms getting ready to actually do our jobs rather than sitting in these stupid meetings anyway. So I'm in the room, and I remember it was twice. Now, the librarian had already told me, I hope they don't run you off. Well, 2 more times during that week before school even started, teachers would come by. They were both times they were ladies. I don't even know who they were. It was, for one, 6 years ago now. But they're going by my room and say, hey, you're the new algebra teacher. And I say, yeah. I say, well, I hope they don't run you off. And then just keep going. So I don't know. I'm like, what the heck's going on around here? What's going to run me off? Is it the administrators who are going to run me off? Is it the students going to run me off? Maybe the parents? Other teachers? What's supposed to run me off? So I don't know. I guess we'll see. Well, I'm a very successful math teacher. I had a track record of success. Every year I taught Algebra 1, or even back when I was teaching 7th and 8th grade math, I never had less than a 90% pass rate on that state math test. And I've always taught a tested math subject. And I would think that employers would be smart enough when they're deciding who to hire. Maybe they would call the previous, in this case, previous principals. Maybe jump on the website where you can find out what test scores all the schools have. I mean, it'd be pretty easy to research me a little bit, check my background, find out if I actually am any good at my job. How successful have I been as an Algebra 1 teacher? I'm convinced that this is not the way schools operate. I'm not 100% sure what criteria schools use or principals use to hire people, but I don't think they're doing any kind of due diligence. I think it probably just comes down to whether we like you or not. Do we get a good vibe from you during the interview session, answering our questions about stuff? Because school starts and they already start treating me. Alan Cook didn't, but This one idiot woman, Shatniqua McBride, she was an assistant principal and had also been a math teacher. So you'd think, she might know what she's talking about. But for whatever reason, they've kind of put Shaniqua over me, where she's going to come in and kind of supervise me, probably mainly because she had been a math teacher. And then there was another woman named Lou Putu Janawati. Lou Putu Janawati. Nice enough lady. Everybody loves her. She's a sweetheart. She's very, very nice. But they assigned her to be my mathematics instructional coach. Now, another thing public education does is they hire what they call instructional coaches, which is a waste of money and really, really stupid anyway. Teachers have college degrees. Teachers have completed teacher certification programs. You have to take and pass all the state tests to get certified and licensed by the state to actually do your job. So you think with all that behind you, you should know how to do your job. And honestly, teaching isn't very hard anyway. It's really not. If you know your subject and you know how to present it, teaching is not that difficult. So what's the need? Why do they hire these damn instructional coaches? It's just more money wasted is all it is. Well, this Lou Putu Janawati and Shaniqua McBride, they ended up being just the biggest pains in my ass. They wouldn't leave me alone. They're coming into my room practically between the two of them. They're in my room every single day at certain periods of the day. They come in and just sit down and observe and watch me do my job. And they're asking me stupid questions. Lou Putu wasn't even certified to teach high school math, but she'd come up and ask, well, what are you teaching today? And it was really kind of funny. Once I was teaching quadratic regression, I was trying to explain to her what quadratic regression is, and partly because she's not qualified to teach this. She doesn't even know what I'm talking about. I'm watching her eyes physically almost physically glaze over as I'm explaining to her. She had no clue what the heck I was talking about, but she's been assigned to be my instructional coach. One time she asked me, Mr. Kilborn, what are you assigning for homework? I said, I just tell the kids to spend at least 10, 15 minutes every night studying the notes or studying what we had learned in class that day. That's the homework. Well, apparently that didn't satisfy Lou Putu Janawati. She went running to Alan Cook and complained that Mr. Kilborn's not assigning homework. And district policy, which I found out later, and maybe I should have already known it, but who reads that crap? Anyway, Mr. Cook calls me in, and Shaniqua McBride and Lou Putu Janawati are sitting there, and they've got this sheet of paper, and it's called Algebra 1 Expectations. So there's all these expectations, things that I was expected to do in my classroom as the Algebra 1 teacher. Well, this was several weeks into the school year. If there were some expectations that I was supposed to be made aware of, why the heck didn't they show me these expectations when they hired me, or at least during that first week of school before the kids even show up? Why are you going to wait around and catch me not doing something you think I'm supposed to be doing, and then, let's give him this checklist of things he's supposed to be doing? And most of this stuff is just stupid. Again, it was insulting because I know what I'm doing. I'm very good at what I do, and I care passionately about what I do. My students will be successful. There's always going to be some that aren't. Very difficult to get special education students to be able to pass that state test. And then there's always that handful of kids that are just lazy, don't care. They're practically impossible to reach. You can't teach the unwilling. So, there's always going to be a few that aren't going to pass the test or aren't going to do that well. But they bring me in, they show me this checklist of things I'm supposed to do. Apparently, one of the things is in Tatum, teachers are, according to the district policy, teachers are expected to assign homework on a regular basis. All right. What's a regular basis and what's expected? Shoot, I expect a pay raise every year, but I don't get one. But anyway, that was made clear to me. You're expected to assign homework. So I did. I assigned homework and went ahead and made up a bunch of homework assignments and gave it to the kids. Each Monday, I would give them the homework assignment for the week. And of course, the kids would be like, when do you want us to turn this in? I said, I don't care if you ever turned it in. I don't need to see it. Said, what? So are you going to grade it? It's not going to grade it. So district policy says I'm expected to assign it. District policy doesn't say teachers are expected to collect it or grade it. Doesn't say students are expected to turn it in. It just says teachers are expected to assign homework. So therefore, if somebody asks you if you have homework, show them this piece of paper that there's your homework assignment, and I don't want to hear anything more about it. McBride again would come in, and what's interesting with her was she was an assistant principal who had been a math teacher, and she had actually taught Algebra 1 at the high school for a couple years. And I found this out fairly quickly. Again, if you've watched some of my older videos, or if you've watched some of the videos where I'm getting my head shaved, I always did this deal where if students made a certain pass percentage on the STAR test, the state Algebra 1 test, then they would shave my head. I'd let them shave my head if we met this goal. You may remember the Henderson video. It happened in Henderson. It also happened in art, but since they put me on administrative leave with pay, the kids didn't get to shave my head. But now I'm in Tatum, and I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I have a plan. It may not look pretty at first, but it'll all work out at the end. So McBride decides after the first 6 weeks test, the kids didn't do that great on it. McBride comes in, and for one, every day she's trying to come in and tell me how I should teach. She's saying, well, I was a math teacher, this is what I did, and you should do this, and you should do that. Well, I found out that McBride was a really, really shitty math teacher. Of the 2 years that she taught Algebra 1, I think the 1 year, I know for a fact, the 1 year she only had a 55% pass rate on the STAR test. So she only managed to get just over half of her students to pass the test. My God, that's so pathetic. Half the students are going to pass the test whether you teach them a thing or not, just based on sheer luck, because they've only got to get like 40% of the questions right anyway. It's not that high a standard. So yeah, she was a miserable, pathetic math teacher, and she was also a pathetic assistant principal. The assistant principal is typically the one that handles behavior and discipline problems, but McBride had been the previous principal's assistant, and she just wanted to be everybody's friend, and all the kids knew it. Actually, one of the things I noticed in every school I ever taught in, any time a principal or assistant principal walked in, kids got quiet. They at least knew somehow to behave and be quiet when the principals were in the room. It was odd. It was funny. I always kind of thought, wouldn't it be nice if I could get a principal to just stay in here with me all day long? Then maybe the kids would just behave and I could teach them. But that's not realistic. But funny thing with McBride, no, McBride came in, that didn't change students' behaviors at all. And I will say that first year in Tatum was pretty rough. There was quite a few rabble-rousers, a lot of undisciplined kids. Maybe it had been a carryover from the previous administration. Even though these kids were only freshmen, the word was out. And you get to the high school, man, you're going to run that place. They don't do anything to you. You can do whatever you want. And that's what was happening. They were roaming the halls, wandering in and out of classrooms as they felt like it. So it took a bit to get a handle on that. And thank God for Mr. Cook, because he came in and laid the law down, and he wasn't going to put up with this nonsense. But anyway, McBride was a thorn in my side, and John Awadi, between these two, I'm miserable. Once again, first 6 weeks, I'm miserable. I screwed up again here. Apparently, I'm not going to be able to find a good place to work. So I'd actually, before the first 6 weeks were up, I'd actually written 2 letters of resignation. The first one, I just wrote it and held on to it. And then the second one, I was so miserable. Every morning driving to work, I was hating life. I said, man, this sucks. Once again, apparently I'm not going to be able to find a good place to teach, a good school to work in, because once again, I'm miserable. These people are micromanaging me, trying to tell me I don't know what I'm doing. And here McBride is, this stupid woman, 55% pass rate on this, and you're trying to tell me I don't know what I'm doing? My God, how insulting. So I wrote another letter of resignation. I told my wife, honey, I'm going to take this in today and turn it in. I'll go in and try to finish out the year, but I'm not going back to this hellhole. And my wife is always the voice of reason in this marriage. I said, no, honey, go ahead and write it. Hold on to it. Leave it here. You can always turn it in later. Wait until after Christmas or wait until spring break or something. You can always turn it in later if that's your plan and that's what you really want to do. But honey, hold on to it for now. Just hang in there, do the best you can. So again, I love that woman. It turned out that she was right, and it would have been really, in retrospect, dumb to go ahead and resign. But that's just how miserable I was. And considering the previous 9, 10, 11, how many years it was in this profession, I'm like, just unbelievable. What a crappy profession this is. So I'm talking to Mr. Cook and thinking, well, and I'm telling him, look, I've got a problem here. Said between John Awadi and McBride in my room, in and out all day long, every day, I don't need this kind of supervision. I don't need this much micromanagement. John Awadi doesn't even know how to do my job, so why is she trying to tell me how to do my job? Got McBride, who I already know what kind of scores you guys were getting or Tatum was getting before you hired me. So I don't know what she's talking about. She clearly was probably one of the worst math teachers I've ever met based on her star scores. They're making my life miserable and trying to tell me what I don't want. Well, I don't tell me I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like, didn't y'all do any kind of due diligence on me? Did you know who you were hiring? I see based on your track record that, yeah, you guys really suck at the Algebra 1 position. You get horrible scores, but I'm not those guys. I know what I'm doing. I've never got less than a 90, well, really a 92% pass rate on the STAR test. So just leave me alone. Let me do my job. And Mr. Cook, he was really great. He said, one of the cool things about Mr. Cook was he'd been in education for well over 20 years at this point. He'd been a classroom teacher and a coach, but he'd been a classroom teacher for over 20 years before he even got into administration. So he was good. And then the superintendent was a man named D. Hart. D. Hart's background, he had been a math teacher before becoming a principal and superintendent. So the leadership at the principal, high school principal and superintendent position was actually pretty impressive. First time I'd run across that. Again, usually these administrators come out of, PE, choir directors, music teachers, crap like that. So these guys were actually actual academics. So it should have been good. But Mr. Cook told me, Mr. Corn, there's a reason why we're doing this, but just hang in there, be patient. It's all going to work out. You'll see. And he told me that a couple times. I'm like, okay, all right, we'll see. Well, thank God, by Thanksgiving, they fired McBride. Probably the plan all along, because she had been under the old regime with the previous principal that had lost control of the school, but for whatever reason, maybe they decided to go ahead and give her another shot. Maybe she'd be a better assistant principal under a new principal. No, she wasn't. So they ended up basically firing her and reassigning her to the middle school to serve as a math tutor for the rest of the year. And for whatever reason, maybe Mr. Cook told her to, but John Awadi left me the hell alone too. So just like that, come back from Thanksgiving and my life, my world has improved tremendously. I'm not being bothered with John Awadi or McBride. I'm allowed being able to do my job. Mr. Cook basically just left me alone. He'd come in once a week to sit, and apparently that was a district requirement. New teachers were required to have a weekly visit from the principal. But just a great guy. Came in, always had nothing but positive things to say to me or about me, never any criticisms, wasn't trying to tell me what I could do to improve as a teacher. So you got to respect that. I mean, I'm a good teacher. I know what I'm doing. Ain't no sense you telling me stuff that I already know. So just to have something to say. So he was great. And honestly, that, under Mr. Cook, that first 2 years in Tatum ended up being pretty great. Now, at the end of that first year, everything went great. My students, we ended up having a 93% pass rate on the STAR test. And there's actually a video on my channel here. It says Marvin getting head shaved 2016. It's the year that I got my head shaved at Tatum. Best scores ever. Even the previous principal, who was basically over maintenance or something, they'd made him chief of maintenance, But he was a nice guy. He was actually one of the ones that interviewed me for the job initially. Nice guy. He just apparently messed up as a principal and got relieved. But he came over. He was really excited. And for the one and only time in my entire teaching career, finally had, and that was the one and only time where an administrator had come over and clapped me on the back, shook my hand, congratulated me, told me what a great job I had done, said he was so happy. Tatum has never got these kind of star Algebra 1 test results before. Just praised me. I mean, just thanked me. It made me feel so good to finally be appreciated for doing a good job. So anyway, I got my head shaved, and then, of course, I got a contract too. And for the first time in my career, was finally offered a term contract. No more probationary contracts. That was a weight off my shoulders. I mean, I almost cried. It felt so good to finally be asked to come back as essentially a permanent employee. So next year, great. Nothing really much to say about it. It was just a great year. Mr. Cook allowed me to just do my job. Again, he was a great leader, a great man. I thank him. I have before thanked him for essentially saving my career, because if it didn't work out in Tatum, I don't know what the heck I was going to do. I don't know if I was going to just keep trying to find a new job every year and finally make it to retirement, or maybe just go off and do something else. I don't know. But I always am grateful to Mr. Cook for helping me and basically saving me, and also renewing some of my faith in the public education system too. Mr. Cook proved to me that, yeah, there are some really, really good leaders and good principals in public education. So that's the first 2 years in Tatum. Next video, and it probably will only take me one more video to talk about my Tatum experience. Well, the following year, things would start taking a turn for the worse. At the end of my second year, Mr. Hart the superintendent decides to retire. Mr. Cook had some personal family things he had to deal with, and also we had a new superintendent coming in that I'm pretty sure Mr. Cook didn't want to work for, because he knew who this clown was. So they both left, and I'm like, oh, great. New leadership next year. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, that's my experiences in Tatum High School for the first 2 years. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to leave a comment, subscribe. Of course, I've only got a couple more videos maybe to do in this series anyway, and then I'll start doing other kind of stuff. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.